First video that I'm going to do for criminal law is attempted crimes. It's a nice topic to get started with. Under OCR, it will not be an essay question, so it will only be part of a scenario question. That makes our life easier because we only have to go through factual content. We don't look at whether the law is fair, whether it needs to be reformed. So the first thing to get started with is, what is an attempted crime? So an attempted crime is an incomplete crime. The defendant has tried to commit a crime, but for some reason they have failed. For example, you intend to kill someone, you stab them, but they're taken to hospital and they survive. You intended to kill, you did something more than merely preparatory, you stabbed them, therefore you would be guilty of attempted murder. And the law is really strict. The law sees you as just as bad as if you had committed the full offence. So the sentence can be exactly the same. So attempted theft, 7 years, theft, 7 years. And the starting point, what I would say, is, where does the law come from? Always start with this, whether it's an essay or a problem question. So the law comes from Section 1 of the Criminal Attempts Act 1981. Now, in criminal law, you have to have committed the actus reus, the physical part of the crime, and you have to have the mens rea, the mental part of the crime. I would always start off with actus reus, go through that with some explanation and some cases, then look at the mens rea, and then look at any other issues. So that would be my structure. Define the law, actus reus, mens rea. So the law comes from Section 1 of the Criminal Attempts Act 1981. The actus reus is that the defendant has to do an act that is more than merely preparatory. So lots of words there, more than merely preparatory. In brackets, you can put MTMP, and that's fine. In an exam, absolutely fine to do that. So what does this phrase mean, more than merely preparatory? So you have to do something that is more than just preparing for the main offence. If you wanted to kill somebody and you went out and you bought some rat poison, for example, you've prepared for the crime, okay? You haven't done anything more than merely preparatory. If you put that rat poison in, I don't know, a stir fry that you're cooking for them, so you're going to kill them that way by eating a poisoned meal, if you put the poison in there and place that plate of food in front of them, you have done something more than merely preparatory. So in order to have the actus reus, something has to be more than just preparing. MTMP. The examples that we've looked at, Jones bought a gun, shortened it, and got into the car with, I think he had a disguise on as well, like a bike helmet or something, and he pointed the gun at the victim, and the victim managed to wrestle the gun from him. So buying the gun, shortening it, putting on a disguise, that was preparatory. He had just prepared. However, the moment he pointed the gun at the victim, he had done something more than merely preparatory. He also intended to kill the victim, therefore he was guilty of attempted murder. The other case where there was something that was more than merely preparatory is the case of Griffin. So Mrs. Griffin, going through a rather nasty divorce, wanted to take her children abroad, which is not allowed. You have to have the permission of the other parent. So Mrs. Griffin went to the school with the children's passports and said to the person on reception that she'd come to collect her children because they had a dentist appointment. Now, she fully intended to take the children abroad, and they said by going into the school and asking to collect the children, she had done something more than merely preparatory. So she was guilty. I think it was attempted child abduction. Don't quote me on that. But yeah, guilty of trying to abduct her own children. So those are two good examples. Jones, Griffin, they did something more than merely preparatory. Now, there are some cases where the defendant just prepared, so they did not have the actus reus. One of the most memorable cases is Geddes. So Mr. Geddes had planned to abduct a boy, and he was found in the toilets. He wasn't allowed to be there. In the toilets, in a school, with a rucksack full of rope, masking tape, and a big knife. Amazingly, not guilty of attempted false imprisonment, because he had just prepared himself. He'd got everything in place, ready to try and grab a boy. So to be guilty, I think he would have had to have actually gone to grab somebody and missed. But yeah, Mr. Geddes still out there today, which is rather alarming. The other really good example is Campbell, nice easy one to remember, outside a post office with an imitation gun and a note and a disguise. So Mr. Campbell had just prepared himself to rob the post office. He had not done anything more than merely preparatory. I presume he would have to have actually gone into the post office and said, "Give me the money," in order to be guilty. So that's what you need to know for actus reus, so more than merely preparatory. There are 2 cases there that say yes, this is more than merely preparatory, and 2 cases that say no. Now the mens rea, you have to intend to commit to the main offence. You cannot be reckless, and that was established in Millard and Vernon. They were messing around with a fence, and they didn't have intent to damage it. They were only reckless, therefore not enough for attempted criminal damage. Mohan defines intention as a desire to bring about the consequences, so I would then put that. So mens rea is intent, recklessness is not enough, Millard and Vernon. Intention, Mohan, desire to bring about the consequences. Conditional intent, so if you look to steal something, if there's anything worth stealing, that is also intent, and that's the Attorney General reference case, AG Ref. The courts, I know I've just said mens rea has to be intention. The courts have allowed recklessness in very rare cases, attempted rape cases, Khan and others. I think they wanted to secure a conviction, so just be aware of that. It's not a major point. The other couple of things that you need to consider: mens rea for attempted murder, you have to intend to kill. So Mr. White, he tried to poison his mother, he intended to kill her. Interestingly, the mens rea for murder, the main offence, is intent to kill or cause serious harm. But for attempted murder, you have to intend to kill. So just remember that. And then really the final point that I would discuss under attempts is, even if you're trying to commit a crime that's actually impossible to commit, you can still be convicted. So as long as you've done something more than merely preparatory and you intend to commit the main offence, you will be guilty of an attempted crime. So D will be guilty if they attempt an impossible crime. That is under section 1, subsection 2 of the Criminal Attempts Act. It was also confirmed in the case of Shivpuri. So Shivpuri, wannabe drug dealer, was caught with what he thought was heroin, and it wasn't, it was snuff and vegetable powder. And he was convicted of attempting to be knowingly concerned with a prohibited drug. He had done something more than merely preparatory, because he had the non-drug in his suitcase, in his car, and he fully intended to be concerned with that drug to end up supplying it. So he was convicted of a crime. So just always go back to that point. Have they done something more than merely preparatory? Did they intend to commit the main offence? If they did, then they are guilty of an attempted crime. So I hope that's helped a bit. Let me know if you have any questions. I'm sure you can comment on it if you do. And then the next video that I'm going to do is murder. So always an enjoyable topic.